stopped to think about how your relationship between you and your parents has changed as you've gotten older?
I feel like I was actually thinking about this recently, like with my siblings. Um, yeah, like I mean, for me, in my head, the gotten older for me is like having a kid. So like ever since I've had Amina, I feel like now that I'm a real adult. So that's like I've definitely compared like my relationship with my parents prior to being a parent myself, and then like now.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I would say that it's changed, but it really hasn't. My dad's passed away, right? So that's relationship obviously has changed. But with my mom, it's always kind of been like this open dialogue-y, cool mom. You can smoke with me if you want to, kind of relationship. I never did because that's not my thing. But I think more so just having like the different boundaries, like for myself personally and her, between me and her is what has changed. Um, but we'll get into more detail later in this episode. We just wanted to break the ice, start something new. You are listening to the Ari and Sid show. Of course, I'm Ari.
And I'm Sid. We're forever friends, and this is the shit we care about.
Yeah, so we have conversations all the time. It's meaningful, it's not so meaningful. And so we made this episode / show to have conversations outside of texting or FaceTiming and spread awareness to the world and have learning from one another outside of our text threads.
Yeah. So, as always, if you hear some shit that you agree with, you don't really agree with, or you just want to stay connected with us, like, subscribe, leave us a comment, follow us on social media, and tell all your friends.
Tell your friends to tell a friend. So getting back into the topic, our theme of the month is relationships. And today, as you had noticed, our conversation is going to be about navigating relationships with your parents.
Yes, ma'am.
It's a cool conversation. I really feel like it has opportunity. Like for me personally, there's like always room to grow, and like there's some healing that should be done. There's some like challenges that probably will never go away just because we're two different people, me and my mom. But needless to say, I think it's a good conversation to have, and I'm excited to have it.
I agree. How okay, so I know you've talked about your mom a little bit so far. How close do you think that you would say that you are? Are you close with your mom? Do you consider yourself close with her?
I think that we definitely could be closer. I feel like we've had experiences, when I moved off to college at ASU, living in the dorms, she was no longer in Arizona at that point. She was living in Las Vegas. And so at 17, about to turn 18 years old, I felt like I was like by myself. And so it's been a long road back from feeling like, I mean, if I was being completely honest, like feeling like I was abandoned. Like, okay, I guess now that I'm at college, you're done being a parent, which is, in itself, some things I need to work through, which I've worked through them. But so we're working our way back to having, because when I was a kid, I was on her hip. And as I've gotten older and whatever, I find that there's truly value in having a relationship with her. We just haven't gotten to the point to where like, do I talk to her every day? No, every week, maybe, we both like, she has stuff going on, I have stuff going on. And so it's kind of just like, if I don't hear from you, that means that you're doing good. And not to say like outside of that one time a week, if I'm not hearing from you in between that, then I know you're safe and you're still like, living and breathing. What about you?
So I think, okay, so after I moved out, I think I became a lot closer with my parents.
Mm.
I feel like I've always been pretty close with them. I'm like a super daddy's girl. I think me and my dad have like, that's, that's the homie. So like, I'm always like, can I go to here? Can I do this? Can we go here?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
I definitely have noticed like since I maybe like graduated high school, maybe even like graduated college and just like come into adulthood, the relationship with my mom, like we're a lot closer. Like I do talk to her every day. Even before COVID and the pandemic, I talked to at least one of them every day. Like, my dad works really early. He's an electrician. So like he's up at 2-3 o'clock in the morning, Arizona time. So like, that
Yeah.
works for me because, that's like 5-6 o'clock in the morning here. So we would talk on my way to work. Typically I'd call my mom on my way home from work. And so now with, being at home and my mom is working from home a few days a week too, like we Skype like almost every day.
Mm.
We had those conversations and that's pretty cool. So, yeah, definitely as I've gotten older, I can say like we're a lot closer. Um, and I think there's just like a little bit more time for them to, like have like close relationships with their kids. Like in my head, like growing up, my parents were just like always grinding. Like my dad was like, always at work and my mom was like always taking care of, the house and us and things like that. And so
Yeah.
I think for a long time, and, there's 5 of us. So I think for a long time, they were just like, okay, let's make sure that they're living and breathing and eating and all that. You know what I'm saying? Like, like that's, taking care of the basic needs. And so now that we're older, everyone's out of the house, they have the opportunity to like spend more time just talking to us about anything and everything. So, I'm definitely grateful for that. Definitely grateful for that. And it is different because I think, and like middle school, I know I was like, I guess technically like a typical middle school kid. I was like, we're not best friends, mom. Like I have my own friends, and like, which sucks. Like in hindsight, you don't have to push your mom out, but, typical preteen, teenage stuff you're going through.
Yeah.
And I'm the oldest girl. So for my mom, I'm the oldest girl and my mom's the youngest of 10. Right. So like, there's so many dynamics you have to think about when you, like, so, when you have to think about like, by the time my mom started having kids, she was already like, auntie, babysitter, all this other things. And so, there's so many things you have to think about when you like humanizing your parents, right? Like you have to humanize them. Like they're people too who were kids once that had their own experiences and have their own feelings about certain things. And it's important to like, I don't know, be open and aware of those things. And I think as kids, of course, we don't really have the capacity to think like that or like, especially if no one is like providing that insight to you, like, oh, remember like your parents are human. But as an adult, I see myself being more reflective of that, being like, oh, okay, this makes more sense. And like, like I can't hold on to feelings about that because this makes a lot more sense. Like I have more information to like understand what was happening and why. So, but I would say I'm pretty close with them.
That's cool. And, of course, having Amina is also a bonus too, right? So now it's like, of course they're going to want to talk to you / Amina every day because she's an amazing kid.
Right. The everyday phone calls definitely aren't all about me. Like I know that for a fact. That's not, it's cute to think about, but it's not really all about me. It's definitely about that child.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's also interesting how you guys talk every day. Even though, like, in the beginning of the pandemic, let's Skype every day, blah, 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 whatever. I say that because it never worked out for me and my family. We never got together over Zoom at all. But you guys are still maintaining that because I will say, like, if somebody's like, hey, let's get on a Zoom with 20 people and talk. I'm like, I'm good. I'll text, you know what I mean? So I think that's also really cool because you already had that. You already have that routine anyway. So I think it's awesome that you guys can still connect, even though, because like it really hasn't changed. You guys have been across the country from each other, not being able to see each other in person for like ever because you decided to abandon everybody. But no, I'm just kidding. So you said that your relationship you noticed that your relationship changed between you and your parents when you became a parent?
Yeah. Yeah. So my dad even like made a joke about this, right? So so again, I'm one of five. I'm the oldest girl, but I'm the middle child, right? But I'm also the only parent out of my siblings right now. So like
Oh,
Amina
wow.
is my parents' oldest grandchild. Of course, one of my brothers and his partner, his girlfriend, they're pregnant now. So, Amina has a little cousin on the way. Super excited. But after I had Amina, my dad was like joking. He's like, "Yeah, Sydney." He's like, "You're sitting at a different table now. Like you're the big people table. Like you at the parents' table now. Like there are things that we could talk about that your siblings can't talk about." And I was like, "Oh
Yeah.
shit, that's right. Like I'm over here, y'all. Like all right, have some kids and get like me. Like I'm over here. I get to sit at the big kids table with mom and dad. We can talk about shit that y'all don't even understand."
Right. You don't know about this life.
Right. What you know about changing time? All that. So that felt cool. Like, I mean, of course, like I mentioned, like I was already kind of close with my parents before, but like, yeah, now we have this like extra special, like sort of relationship where we can like talk about things and like it be like exclusive kind of, like, yeah, like I'm like really I'm here, and I also think that it's cool to like have my parents sort of like watch me parent. Like I'll like find myself being like, look what my kid can do. Like look what she can do. Like I taught her that. Like am I doing a good job? Like so like it's cool to like be like, okay, y'all were like, really dope parents. Like you did this for me and like look at now what I can do for my kid. And like I share that with them a lot. Like even with Mo's parents, because those are in-laws and they're super supportive too. I tell them all the time, like the only reason we're able to parent Amina how we parent Amina is because y'all parented us the way you parented us. And so like
Yeah.
regardless of if that was like 100% the correct way to do it, like you've led us here and we're able to do a really great job for our kid. And so like I can appreciate that. But yeah, it's definitely cool. And then just watching or just hearing from my parents, like them tell me like, "Oh, you're such a good mom," or like, like you're a great parent. I'm like, "Oh,
Aww.
that's like super great validation." Like,
Yeah, for real.
so I don't know, like that. It's like top notch. I remember my mom was on the phone. We were on Skype one day and I was like playing with Amina and my parents started having like a side conversation and my mom was like, "I always knew she was going to be a good mom. Like, look at how well, like, look at how happy her baby." And so, that made me feel really good. But that's definitely where I noticed like, okay, it shifted a little bit. And also because, I don't know, like this is my parents' first time being grandparents, right? And like, this is my first time being a parent. And so it is important to like, kind of like establish that like, okay, like I love you and I'm your baby, but this is my baby.
Yeah.
And I get it though. This is all our baby, but this is my baby. And so just navigating that is really interesting too. But like it feels good when your parents like hear you and they see you and they're like, "Yeah, you're right. Like it's not our baby. It's our grandbaby." So it's nice to like they let me parent the way I want to, if that makes sense. I mean, they don't have no choice because again, this is my baby, but it feels good to like not be so pressured to be doing it this way because like, oh, we're your parents and we've done this before. So listen to us. It's kind of like, they're like, this is really cool watching you parent, and even if it's stuff that I do differently from what they did, they like, I don't know, give me my props and validation. So that feels really good.
Yeah. I know it's one of those things that I feel like you only know, right? When you first become a parent, you only know how you were parented, right? And then you get to decide. So that's also another cool thing about becoming a parent is like you and having a close relationship with your parents because they're still parenting you, right? Like while they're not paying all your bills and doing XYZ, they're still parents to you. So then you can take what they've taught you and if not everything works for you or maybe it didn't work for you and you just were a child and you didn't voice it, you can pick and choose. So I think that's also another dope aspect of becoming a parent and having them in your life and them watching you and seeing how you're navigating that new adventure because it's truly a not a once in a lifetime, because if you become a parent again, then you do it all over again. But it's dope. So that's really great. I like that. I love that for you.
Yeah. What about you? When do you think? I know you mentioned like when you got to ASU, it was kind of like, okay, here I am, adulthood. But would you say that was like the point of when your relationship shifted with your mom, or is there another like point in time where you're like, this is probably like another shift, or like the biggest shift?
So when I was actually, it's funny because now that I'm thinking about it, our relationship probably shifted a lot sooner than that because I was in a relationship, all up in somebody else's house. But so of course, like what I was like 16, 17 in like a long-term roll my eye relationship. Thinking I was with the love of my life. Sorry, I'm being super shady. That means I mean no shade to anybody. I just like the idea at that age, thinking that I was in some deep relationship is just amazing to me because yeah. Anyways, so that was one time. And then, we were pretty like distant. Like I talked to her, but it was definitely a one-way street of like her requesting things from me. All the way until like I was like, hey, I started to learn to draw a boundary, and it was hard because like your mom, your parents, they do everything they can for you. We were homeless at one point, like seeing my mom, navigate that and having to give my mom money to pay for certain things. And, and from my allowance or from when I earned, money on the side from pulling weeds, in Arizona summer. So I say that because when I became like, it had to be around like 20 or so. I was like, hey mom, like, I know I was always there for you. I'm always going to be here as like, whatever, but like, I don't got it. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm fucking in college trying to figure out what the hell I'm going to do with my life. So that was another point. And then like, in recent years, 25, somewhere around 25-ish. It's been like a more like, hey, just checking in on you. It's not really like a transactional. Because at one point it felt really transactional. Like it was like a, hey, I'm checking on you, but like in a week I'm going to ask you for money kind of relationship. And now it's definitely not that now. We mostly text. We don't really talk on the phone, which is so funny because like thinking about when I was a kid and like trying to text my mom, it's like that time in life was just definitely like, oh my gosh, you don't even know what you're saying. You don't know what T9 is? Come on. So yeah, we mostly text. We haven't really gone on the phone very often, which is crazy because like, I don't really have shit to talk about anyway. So it works for me, like, we get on here and talk, but like literally, like, we don't talk much about much throughout the week because there's really nothing. Hey, I'm starting a new class on Monday. Like, whoop-de-woo. It's not. So until, life starts to change or, I get engaged and putting that out there. Then I'll be able to call people and talk to them about shit. But right now I'm like, same old. So talking about that in that same light of like drawing boundaries, I feel like for me, it's been one of the most like monumental shift in my life of like being able to determine boundaries between my family, because at one point we were all relying on each other, right? At a young age. And so when I became an adult and like had my own bills and making, not even, haven't been making decent money until recent years. So pretending like I had decent money, drawing those kind of boundaries of like, hey, I'll be there for you, but I can't be there for you in this way, has been the most like monumental thing that I've done as far as boundaries goes, because growing up and like even now, sometimes I struggle with like, well, family's supposed to be there for each other. And well, of course, I'm always going to be here for you. I'll lend an ear. You know what I'm saying? Am I going to like give you hundreds of dollars? Even if I had it, I'd be like, what do I don't know. So I definitely have a lot more thought put into the things that I'm willing to do for my family. How would you decide, or I'm sorry, how important do you think boundaries are in your adult relationships with your parents?
I think they're super important because, I think, like I mentioned earlier, like for me, like, oh, I'm in this, like, I'm at the parents' table, right? And like that sort of puts you in the, how like growing up, your parents be like, I ain't want any little friends. But then like, as we get older and we start to like, have more things in common, it starts to feel like you're one of my little friends.
Yeah.
But the boundary is like, you're right. You're still not one of my little friends. Like, and we have to keep that boundary. Right. And so even like the things that we talk about, like I mentioned, like, my parents, they're my parents. So, and they're Mina's grandparents. So they're going to offer advice about, parenting her and things like that. I think for me, myself, I had to learn how to put up my own like emotional boundaries, because every time like early on in pregnancy, early on in parenthood, like anytime something would be suggested to me, I'd be like, oh, is it because I'm not being a good parent? Like, oh shit. Okay. So I'm being bad at this. And now like I'm internalizing that, when it really from them, it was just like, offering support and things like that. So me just like understanding, because for a long time, of course, like these are my parents. So these are people who made decisions for me and things like that. So now it's like, oh, do you think I can't make decisions for myself? That's why you feel like you have to offer this to me. So just kind of like creating my own boundaries around like healthy thoughts when it comes to advice being like lended to me or like things like that.
Yeah. That's real.
Yeah. That's it. But yeah, I think boundaries are super important with our parents. And also just like in relationships too. There are things that my parents and I talk about in terms of relationships. Mo and I are engaged. And so like, they're going to offer us advice and, ask us how we're going. But also as adults, I think it's important that we like, there are lines drawn. We're not going to sit here and talk and analyze every part of our relationship, because this is not y'all's relationship, and like my parents have never tried that. They themselves have really good boundaries around that. Like, as far as like, you're an adult, so like, I'm going to trust you. And like, for them, it's like, well, I trust myself. Like, I think I raised you well enough to make these decisions.
Yeah.
So, go ahead and do that. But at the same time, I feel like if I ever needed to, that's a boundary where like, or a line, like if I needed them to, they would cross it for me. Like if I came to them and was like, I need to talk about this and this. I know we don't usually talk about this and this, but I need to. I think they'd be like, okay, that's all right. Cause I'm your parent.
Yeah.
So one of your little friends. Did your parents used to say that to you? Cause my mom used to say it all the time.
No. My dad, well, up until a certain point, how old was I? I say around like in high school at some point, because for a long time, I'm getting to a point here. Sorry, I know I didn't finish that thought, but my dad used to make us call him sir.
And I did not know that.
Yeah. So it'd be like, yes, sir, no, sir, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And so if we didn't say sir, he was like, excuse me. And, internal eye roll, like, yes, sir. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, shit, give me a break. So up until a certain point in high school, like me and my brother just stopped calling him sir. You know what I mean? Because like, I'm not fucking obese. Like, and also like, I've always been a cusser. It's just been like in my natural, like my jargon. It's never been to like cuss somebody out, although I will, but it's always just been like something I say. So when I became like 18, when I turned 18, like I didn't have to hide that. It's just like, I know there are other things I could say. And, I've pulled back a lot on how much I actually cuss. But so talking to them, how I talk to anybody, really. Yeah. That's like when I turned 18, it was like, I don't have to filter. You know what I mean? I'm not going to hide how I'm talking, because this is me. Hey, take it or leave it, or I just won't talk to you. No, I'm just kidding. And my mom, yeah, she never said anything, mostly because she also worked a lot. So she was a waitress and she was often gone working. And my dad they split up when I was like, 11. So if my mom wasn't home, it was because she was at work or hiding from us. No, I'm just kidding.
I definitely turned on that switch. Like I'm a avid cusser too. That's, clearly the name of our
friends,
show.
I mean, for
right,
reason,
exactly.
Right?
We was walking around cussing with each other. But so like, and my dad, I mean, my mom used to always say my dad is a sailor too. And she's like, you cuss just like your dad. Yeah, both sailors. So like, yeah, like after graduation, like it was like, okay, this is just part of my vocabulary. And now that, y'all are around, this is part of my vocabulary.
Yeah.
That and I feel like recently there was like a tweet I saw that was like, y'all really be drinking with y'all parents or drinking in front of y'all parents. I'm like, dog, we're taking shots together. We are adults, okay?
I know, right? Come on now.
I'm about to be 29 years old. What you mean?
Yeah, I definitely.
After I turned 21, it was a wrap. Like, still to this day, if I come out to Arizona, my dad will make sure he has my favorite beer in the fridge before I get there. Like,
yeah, he knows what it is. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. So if anything, like one of y'all little friends, like if that's what you consider friends, then yeah, we're kind of friends a little bit because we will cuss and drink together.
Yeah. Yeah, that's real. I think it's kind of cool though too. Like, you can kiki. You can kiki with your parents, what I mean? Without like making them, because when I hear the word, are you like, I'm not one of your little friends, it's like, you're not going to disrespect me. Like that's how I kind of always have seen that. And so you can kiki with them and like, yeah, but I'm not going to be like, bitch, to anybody's mom. Like, you know what I mean? Not even mine, you know what I mean? But shit, if I'm hyped up talking to one of my friends, okay, cool, I'll say that. But I'm still not going to do that to, somebody else's parent unless like, that's how they talk. But really, even then, like, okay, really quick sidebar. Speaking of, I'm not one of your little friends. Okay, this is something that I still do to this day. It's so like, it's hard for me to not do. So I don't know why, but like going into other people's parents' rooms is always really hard for me. Yeah, and same. I don't remember my mom and dad's room ever being like somewhere we couldn't go, but like, I don't remember ever spending a lot of time in there outside of trying to go on the computer when they were at work during the summer and use AOL, which obviously crashed and burned. But so now when I go to other people's house and like it's their parents' house or even sometimes their house, I don't know why, but like I can't go into their room until they like, you can come in here. You know what I mean? Right, yeah. And I don't know why, but I say that because as an adult, that shit still hasn't changed. And like, I keep that. Like, I don't know why that's such a hard boundary. Even now, like people coming into my room, I'm like, it's dirty. Don't come in here. I'm not ready. You know what I mean? Right. Sorry, I had to do that sidebar.
No, that's real because growing up, my parents did not like it when we brought anybody into their. My mom was like, why would your friends need to be in my bedroom? So it's always like, we need to ask before, and they'd be like, okay, yeah, bring them back there. Or like, yeah, tell her to come here. And like, it would only be like, like my closest of close friends. Like, I can't even think how many people have actually been in my parents because why are we in there? Like,
right.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm very much still like that. Like, I don't like, I don't know. I just don't be going in people's house exploring. Like,
right, yeah.
Living room, community room, right? Community room. This is where I feel like I belong. Until you tell me that I can go somewhere else or that we're gonna be in some other room.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to sidetrack us really quick. I was like,
no.
So, do you think about? Well, you kind of have touched on this. Do you think you want your relationship with your child to be the same as yours with your parents when your child becomes an adult? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, okay. So like when Amina is an adult, oh my God, because she has to be an adult one day. Shit. That's wild. Yeah. Okay. When Amina's an adult, do I want her relationship with me to feel like what my relationship with my parents feels like right now? Yeah, I mean, I think the relationship that I have with my parents right now is very healthy, you know, and like my mom and I are talking about stuff that like we've never ever talked about like before, you know what I'm saying?
Mm,
Like, you know, like we talk
mm-hmm.
about like therapy and mental health and like that stuff that like no one was, you know what I'm saying? Like nobody was talking about
Yeah.
that stuff when we were younger. And when we were younger, it was always like, you know, like family business stays in the house and nobody needs to know what's going on. And so it's been really cool to like just have these like candid conversations about that stuff. And like, you know, even if it wasn't even if it's just like, you know, something new that we've been able to do, I'm grateful that we are able to do it. And like I would definitely want, you know, me and Amina's relationship when she's older to look the same, like for us to be able to talk about stuff and like, you
Yeah.
know, to like to get excited when we call, like we talk literally every day and my mom is like so excited every time, like in that it feels so good, like, you know, like, of course,
Yeah.
like, you know, it's her kid, but like the just the fact that we're able to find things to talk about. And like honestly, sometimes we don't. We just be sitting on Skype staring at each other, doing random stuff and just be on the phone, you know? And so I feel like in that aspect, that sort of feels like friendship, you know, like we will call each other
Yeah.
and just kind of like be on the phone, just to be on the phone. And that feels good. Like, you know, I never doubted that, you know, this is what our adult relationship would look like. But I'm grateful that it is what it is. And I feel like, you know, if we were closer in proximity, like if I was in Arizona or she, you know, was out here, it would be even more of a like close relationship because then we could spend like, you know, physical time together
Yeah.
and share physical space. But yeah, I would be down for that. Yeah.
That's awesome.
What about you?
Um, Probably not. I think, you know, one of the biggest things that I'm afraid of having, or one of the biggest things about having children that kind of makes me apprehensive because, like, I am worried how our relationship will be as as I get older. Because, you know, like, I we had like, not saying that my parents were bad parents, you know what I mean, but like it was definitely it wasn't until I was older, like specifically when my dad, before he died, like we were close and we would talk. Like he called me almost every day, um just to say, you know, just talk shit, and then we hang, even if it was like for a few minutes. So yeah, I'd like that. But like the relationship that me and my mom have, I don't know, I think it's definitely something that, of course, it's a two-way street. And I don't want to have my child be the one that has to continuously try and reach out. I'm not saying that that's what happens, because that's not. My mom definitely reaches out a lot more now, especially in the like last, what, I don't know how many years. I can't keep track of time. But for the long, like I want to be there. I want to drop my kid off at college. You know what I mean? I want to co-sign on their fucking first car. My dad did. So that was so things like that. I want to be more involved in their lives as they get older. But I also, I mean, you know me, and maybe this will change. This will definitely probably change whenever I do have children. Cause like, I'm okay with not talking to people. You know, I don't mind even if it does bother me, I don't mind not telling people that, hey, like I would like to talk more. You know what I mean? I don't mind not saying that. Um, so yeah, I definitely would rather us have a different type of relationship than what I have with my parents now. I think it's just one of those things we just have to work a little harder on. And I mean, she's in school, I'm in school. Like, who has the energy? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's definitely a growing, not a pain, but a growing pain that we have to work through. And so whenever I have a child and they become an adult, I definitely don't want to start where I'm at now. You know what I mean? This is a good point for, like, if you know me and my mom's relationship and, you know, deeper, this is a good point of where we're at now. But this is definitely not the starting point of what I would want my child and myself to have. So yeah.
I think that's what's so dope about like growing older and like learning and having relationship with your parents, because then you can, you know, you see that and you can see like, okay, where I want to start and where I want to take it as far as like how I want to parent, whatever. And like at the end of the day, all of that is because of how your parent was for you, right? And so like you can be, there's like room to be grateful for like the experience, because that means like generationally we're just getting better, right? Like I feel like I saw a tweet or something and it was saying like, you know, like our generation is a generation that is like, you know, working on healing, and like we're the healers, and like our kids are going to be the healed. And so like, you know, every generation we're able to learn more and more and like apply the knowledge and the experiences so that eventually like the trauma and, you know, the growing pains and all that are just easier to bear, or like just not even there. Right. So like it's nice to be able to be like, all right, like this stuff worked for our family, and I see it that it's been here for a long time through generations. And like also this did not work for our family, and like I'm dead in that shit. Like it's dead. It's not, you know, it's not gonna be here. And like, you know, that's not gonna be part of our legacy the whole time. Like we're going to build off that. And you know, it got us this far and we're grateful for that. But from here, we're gonna take it up a notch so that, you know, we just get better and better. It's so cool.
Yeah, snaps.
This is hella random, but like I like thinking about like lineage and like legacy and just like, you know, like the biological connections you have for like your ancestors and the people before you. Like I really like think about that a lot, and like it's super important to like acknowledge that, especially when we're talking about like, you know, trauma through generations like that. It lives in our body, and like, you know, like it lives in like, you know, like our DNA. And I also think about like how like, you know, when our moms were inside of our grandmother's belly, like we were with them. So like, you know, again, like this is stuff that we maybe physically weren't, you know, around to feel, but like we felt at some point, like some way through like, you know, our moms and things like that. So I just think it's so important, and it's helping like, you know, the way that we parent our kids, you know, our parents' grandchildren, that's only going to help our parents as well. Like they're going to see that. And like, I'm sure like they're going to feel good, you know, and like know that like they contributed to this too. Which I think real. Is so dope.
Yeah. My mom always tells me, she's so dramatic though too. You're the best thing that I've ever done. I accomplished in life. I'm like, oh my gosh. Come on, man. We don't need a fucking.
She like, loves you.
Keep the red carpet.
You sounded just like her when you said that.
Oh, she's super proud, and I'm proud of her too. You know, we've come a long way, and I think it's so important because you bringing up lineage. It's crazy how I identified like when I turned 17 as the point in which like was the biggest shift in me and my mom's relationship, and my mom's mom, so my grandma, died when my mom was around that same age. So I'm sure like, of course, when I turned 17, like, you know, and the crazy thing is too, like looking back and like learning all the things that I've learned about like trauma and being trauma informed and, you know, healing and all those different psychological terms. One thing that has resonated the most is how I've been able to look back and say, okay, there are certain things that happened that had literally nothing to do with me. And at the point of time when it was happening, I could not register that. And so like allowing myself to realize like, I mean, I made some dumbass decisions when I was early 18 or early 20s, you know what I mean? So if my mom had made decisions at some point that I thought were dumb and I criticized harshly, like, how am I, you know what I mean? Like, so now it's like, I'm the pot calling the kettle black, you know what I mean? It's like, so I've tried to like redact slowly some of the things that I've said and like be less hypocritical and, you know, and understanding, coming from a place of like understanding of like, I see you and I know that like my struggles aren't necessarily the same by any means, but like, I know what it's like to struggle. And so like, even if you're struggling as an adult, you're a parent to me, right? But like, I don't need a parent to hold my hand anymore. I now see like your struggles are definitely something that like have impacted your life, and that's value. You know what I mean? That doesn't take away from anything that you've done or are going to do. Like your struggles are something that we can like kind of bond over now. You know what I mean? So like now that we both have struggled different points in our lives, the hope is like maybe one day we'll be able to like kiki over those, not kiki, because I mean some of them are like, you know, sad and depressing, but you know what I mean? As far as like just having conversations about them and understanding like we're both human and like we put our parents on a pedestal as a kid because like, I mean, we're kind of told to, for one, we're kind of told, you know what I mean? Like that's your parent, like don't disrespect, don't, you know, blah, 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 don't do this, you know? And so, of course, when that pedestal gets taken away and like the veil is pulled back and you're like, holy shit, you fuck up too.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like, damn, this whole time I thought that like I was only fuck up, you know what I mean? Or I, you know, and so that's kind of a thing that I feel like we should talk more about. Like when that pedestal is removed from your parent and like you see them for a human being instead of this like godlike figure that brought you into this world. Cause I know I've heard that, right? You know what I mean? So I feel like that conversation of like, how do we like, how can that transition be smoother? Because it's kind of like an existential crisis. You know what I mean? Like, holy shit.
That's such a good point. I think a part of it is like, you know, as parents, like we have a responsibility to show our kids at every age that like we can fuck up too. And like, you know, like, you know, apologizing and like showing like, oh, you know, mommy messed up or like, you know, like that wasn't a very good decision. And then just showing how do you like persevere from that. Like, I think that could be really important to, you know, dismantling that whole crisis and things like that, because you're right. Like parents look like superheroes, like, and especially like if you come from like a certain lifestyle where like, like for me, like my dad grinded, like, you know what I'm saying? Like my dad has always just worked so much. And like my mom too, like they just grinded, they just made shit happen. Like there'd be stuff that I don't know how this happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how we're doing this, and then they make it seem so easy.
Yeah.
Because in their head, like they don't have no choice, you know? But I think it can take some of the stress off of parents and off of kids if we just normalize parents messing up, like, you know, like, and showing that to kids at a young age, because then like you're not gonna go through your life thinking I'm gonna be perfect and trying to hold me to perfect, because I'm not. Okay. Like, Amina, you're not, you don't have a perfect mom, and that's okay. But you have a mom who's trying, you know, and a mom who is willing to, you know, do whatever she can to make things the best. So yeah. Because parents definitely, my parents, I definitely thought they were superheroes. I'm like, I don't know how y'all do this shit, but okay.
Damn. It's wild. I mean, you know, we're living proof that even if they did fuck up and we didn't know it, like it didn't matter. You know what I mean? Like we're still here. Right. We're thriving fucking humans and strong women and, you know what I mean? Doing shit, caring about shit. So I think that also trying not to get caught up on like, wow, you should have done that differently. Like, I know you're not perfect, but like, you know, cause I'm a critical person in my head. So like, I tried not to, but then that builds resentment of like not sharing it. So like, just not getting caught up on those mistakes. Cause you know, when a parent hurts like their child at a young age, not even a young age, adolescent, early 20s, whenever, it's something that's like, you can heal from that. You can let it go. Like, even though you're an adult, like, I don't need them now. I pay, like, you can choose to, you know, say, holy shit, that they made a mistake. Mm-hmm. Like, there should be normalization of that. People make mistakes. You don't have to beat them over the head for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can talk all day about this though. So I'm gonna let you get up out of here. And we'll share with them what our cause is.
Yeah. So It's March. So March is, first of all, March is a lot of great things because my birthday's in
Yes.
March. But and it's social work month. But amongst those things, it is also Women's History Month, and March 8th is International Women's Day. And so we just wanted to point that out and encourage you to, you know, celebrate the women in your life, celebrate their achievements, raise some awareness against bias, you know, shout out and take action for equality, whatever that looks like. If you know some women that work in a field with you, at a job with you, you know that they're getting paid less than you, what are you going to do about it? You know, like raise your voice, because clearly people aren't listening if people need to get paid, period. But yes, so the theme is choose to challenge. So, you know, challenge the bias, challenge the inequality, and, you know, raise up the women in your life, and not even just women in your life, but just the women around you.
Yeah.
Period.
They're doing some dope shit, you know?
Yeah.
And lastly, we have a quote for you, and it's super fitting. Realizing your parent is a real person is that moment where you confide in you. Shit, I fucked that up. Realizing your parent is a real person is that moment where they confide in you, or you visit them in the hospital. It's realizing that they're not invincible, but they need you as much as you completely, unequivocally need them. And that's by an unknown person leaving some wisdom for y'all.
Leaving some wisdom. Yeah, we need to normalize our parents, humanize parents, y'all. You do not become a super person, right? You do not become a super person or like gain any extra fucking skills except being able to, like, you know, run off of no sleep when you become a parent. So alrighty, well, I'm gonna let y'all go. Thank you for tuning in. As always, this is season 2, episode 5.